Hello and welcome to the Secrets of Happily Ever After podcast. I'm your host, Monica Tanner, my co-host, Nate Bagley. And we loved this last week, just letting Nate take away the topic. And I just kind of spun off of whatever he started. So I barely know what he's talking about on this one. So I'm going to let him introduce what we're talking about today.
Awesome. I like throwing you curveballs. I like coming up with an idea just to see what pops up for you. Um, I have a theory. I'm pretty confident that the most popular relationship book ever written, and some people will be like the Bible, not non-religious text. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a book specifically written for marriage. I think that it does more harm than good. And the book is The Five Love Languages. And there are going to be people who hear me say this that will be like, "Oh,
They're
but
going to
it's
just,
a book."
if you can't handle it, shut it off. But if you're curious, because I'm curious, let's.
Right. I'm not going to knock. I don't think my hope is that this is curveball enough that it helps people understand how the five love languages might be hurting their relationship and what they can actually do about it. Because the idea that itself. So let's start at the top.
I love this idea because we talk about the five love languages all the time, and I don't necessarily love them, but
Yeah.
I do refer to them quite often. So let's,
I love the idea of understanding that different people give and receive love differently.
yes.
I love the concept that I actually did an experiment early on in my marriage where um, I was like, okay, for 1 week, I'm going to get my wife flowers, so I'm going to give her a gift. I'm going to like clean the house every day and like take care of her least favorite chores, which was dishes. Like she hates doing dishes, so I just did the dishes without her asking every single day and just made sure that the kitchen was always clean. And then I like wrote her little love notes for words of affirmation just to make her feel good. And then every day when I got home from work, I would like pin her up against the wall and give her a passionate kiss. And that was like my physical touch thing. And I wanted to see at the end of the week what she responded best to. So at the end of the week, it was Sunday, and we were talking, and I was like, "Hey, did you notice anything different this week?" And she goes, "Oh my gosh, that kiss." Like every day, I don't know where that came from, but you come home from work and pin me up against the wall and give me this really passionate kiss. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Thank you. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And she's like, and I also noticed you've like really been helping around the house a lot more too. Like it's been so nice to just not have to worry about the dishes. That's been great. I'm like, yeah, no problem. And then I said, did you notice the flowers? And she goes, the what? And I'm like, the flowers on the kitchen table. She goes, oh my gosh, how long have those been there? And I'm like, two or 3 days. And she's like, are you serious? I completely missed them. And I realized in that moment that my wife really craved and loved and appreciated physical touch. And she also really appreciated getting help,
Acts of
especially
service.
with yeah, acts of service, things that she hated doing. But gifts, not a big thing for her. And it was cool. Like I put the five love language to the test to see if my wife would respond differently to different things, and she absolutely did. So that concept
So you're
I
using
love.
five love languages right now.
I love. But here's the thing. I think the way that most people implement the five love languages in their marriage actually does more harm than good. The idea and the principles themselves are great, but I think what happens is you read the book and then you identify your love languages. You go, "Oh my gosh, my love language is words of affirmation and acts of service." That's all I need. I just need my partner to appreciate me more and help me out more, and then I'll be happy. And then I'll be happy. And then like once we learn this concept and learn this thing about ourselves, learn what really sets us off in a good way, not sets us off in a bad way, but learn what really like gets us going and makes us feel loved, then we weaponize it. Then every time something goes wrong in the relationship or your partner lets you down, you use your own love language as a cudgel to beat your partner over the head with. Like, you just never perform. My love language is acts of service, and you're not serving enough. My love language is words of appreciation, and you never tell me anything. Like you never tell me how much you love me or how much good I'm doing in the relationship. And the love language has become an expectation.
Mm.
It's a covert contract that if now that my partner knows these things about me, if they truly love me, they'll do these things. And if they're not doing those things, it's because they don't love me. They don't care. And I think that those ideas, when the five love languages are implemented in that way or with that attitude, can really be damaging. And I see it happen a lot. I see that a lot. I see the five love languages become the source of a lot of resentment in marriage. I see it become the source of a lot of jealousy. I've seen it become the source of infidelity. Like, oh, I met this coworker or this other somebody from my past has rekindled this relationship and started talking to me, and all they do is tell me how incredible I am and how amazing I am, and I never get that from my partner. And it just feels so good to feel appreciated the way I want to be appreciated. Maybe I chose the wrong person. Then these doubts start to creep in. I'm feeling all these positive emotions from this other person. So that like the five love languages, if you believe that that you can the only way you can feel love or the only way your partner can correctly express love is if they do it in accordance to what matters most to you. I think that can be a really dangerous belief to adopt. What do you think? What do you think about this premise?
I'm kind of working it around in my mind. So you're saying that it's fair to say that Gary Chapman nailed like five different ways in which people express love, and he probably got pretty close to the five ways.
Yeah, I think there's like I think it's a really great entry point to developing to realizing that the way you experience love and or just the world in general is not the same the way that your partner does. And yeah, I think the five love languages that he came up with are like a really great entry point into considering how other people might
You
feel the
know,
expression of love and connection.
okay, so I just had like a light bulb, like, okay, because yeah, I think it's interesting because I think the five love languages is kind of like a personality test. Like it's true that there are different people who experience and give love in different ways, which are what the five love languages are. But it's just information about your partner. But I think what happens is I think what you're kind of trying to say is like if we put too much stock in it, then it can be really crippling because like for example, like a disc assessment or
Myers-Briggs
like a
or
Myers-Briggs, right? And you're like, well, I can't do that because
Enneagram.
I'm a blue or, like,
I'm a Pisces.
yeah,
However you might define yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
I can't be in a relationship with a gift giver. Like I'm a physical touch person.
right, right. Or, like you can't expect me to do that. That's not my love language. I don't know what to do there, right? Or something like that. Or you can't expect me to function without this thing because
Right.
that's my love language, right? So it's just like, yeah, I think you can put a lot of just unfair limitations on that. Like you could
Yourself and your partner.
yeah, you can use the information for good. Like, oh, I know my partner is a words of affirmation, so I can give compliments freely. That is
Yeah.
something I can do to really like support my partner, right? But at the same time, you can also pigeonhole, like that's the only way to show love to them. Or, if I want to hurt them, I'm definitely not going to do
Or
that
withhold
thing.
this. Yeah, it can be a punishing thing.
Yeah, withholding. Ooh.
Yeah, I see a lot of people who will, this is a frequent occurrence where they learn each other's love language. And one partner goes out and goes, okay, you're a physical affection person. I'm just going to give you lots of affection, lots of affection. And they go out of their way to do that. And that's really awesome of them. But they expect their partner to reciprocate with the same level of energy and enthusiasm for their love language, which might be acts of service. And it's like, well, I keep giving you affection and I initiated sex a couple of times and I kiss you and I've been holding your hand and I've given you back scratches and I snuggle with you every night and you're still not picking up your laundry. And it becomes kind of a covert contract of like, well, I'm doing this. Why aren't you doing this? Am I the only one who cares about the relationship? Um, because there's this expectation that now that you have the information, now that you know how I feel loved, now that you know what my love language is, you are going to dedicate yourself to speaking that language, and that's the only language that you will use to speak to me. And if you don't, I'm going to interpret that as you do not care.
Yeah.
You do not
There,
love me.
there's also like setting the kind of the limitations on it that like my primary love language is words of affirmation, but that's not to say that and probably my lowest is gifts. Like I am terrible. I'm a terrible gift giver and I don't super recognize like really great gifts,
Unless
but
it's a vacation.
unless it's what?
A vacation, but that's
Yeah.
meaningful.
I do love vacations, but that's more quality time, and quality time is up there for me. But yeah, like that doesn't mean that if my husband brought home flowers, I wouldn't be like super stoked. Like, oh my gosh, like thank you for thinking of me. That's amazing. Like I can get all of the validation of words of affirmation from him bringing me home flowers means just as much as if because it's just like him saying, "You are such an amazing wife, and I was thinking about you
Right.
today, and I wanted to show you how much I love you, right? Like,
So, Monica, my whole argument for this is that not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that. My whole argument is there are people out there. This is how it can ruin your relationship. There are people out there who get the flowers, and they all they see is you don't get me. You
right.
just don't get me. I don't care about the flowers. Don't you get it? I do not care about the flowers. I just want you to put your clothes in the hamper. I
Right.
just want you to kiss me when you see me. I just want you to say thank you for doing the thing that I did yesterday to make your life a little bit better.
Yeah.
But all you're doing is just like you just give me flowers and think that that's gonna scratch the itch, and it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
And they become resentful and angry. So
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that I think it's aspirational for people to get to the place that you're at where you can get the gift of flowers and be like, I feel loved. And this is
Uh-huh.
wonderful,
Uh-huh.
even though it's not my primary love language. My argument is that there are a lot of people who read the five love languages and they think, I've unlocked the key to a happy marriage. If my partner does X, Y, and Z, if my partner has lots of sex with me and helps me clean the house every day, or if my partner spends a lot of time watching my shows with me and rubs my feet, if my partner gives me these, whatever the recipe is for
Then
them,
you'll
if my
feel
partner
loved.
does that, then I'm going to be happy. And if I do that for them, then they're going to be happy. So all it requires is for both of us to do that thing for each other and we'll be happy. And then when that doesn't happen the way that they envision it happening, they become resentful and angry, and it becomes more of a wedge than what it was intended to be, which is like an insight to help you um, more than anything, I think, help you love your partner more. But I think what most people experience it as is this is how I want to be loved. They
Yeah.
experience this is what I can get out of it, and not so much this is what I can put into it. It's less about, hey, I'm discovering something about my partner and how I can be a better partner to them. And it's more wow, I finally understood why I don't feel loved by my partner. If they just do this, then I'll be happy in my relationship.
Yeah. 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 I think it's kind of small.
Have
It's
you
kind
seen anything like this though? Like, am I on? Do you think I'm on track here?
yeah, no, I mean, I think you have a very valid argument. And what if I brought this into the discussion? Because
Yeah,
you hear a lot of times like a love language, like, yeah, knowing someone's love language is like cool, but like, have you ever heard the saying like love is not enough? Like it's not enough just to love somebody. So if all you're doing is speaking in their love language, maybe that's not enough to really have a healthy, dynamic, passionate, intimate relationship.
I agree. I agree. I'm a firm believer that have you ever heard the phrase milk before meat?
Hmm. Me, sort of.
Uh, I think what it goes back. Let me actually look at the origins of that.
Milk before meat. That makes me
The
think of my
scripture,
Jewish ancestry and keeping things
the
kosher.
phrase "milk before meat" comes from the Bible. Refers to the idea that some people are not yet ready for meat and instead need milk or other nourishment. So, like babies, you can't feed them meat. You have to give them milk first, and then they grow into it, and then they can have meat.
Yeah.
The idea is like we start with like simple foods that can be broken down easily, and then we get to the more complex ones. And the
Yeah.
same thing goes with like information and knowledge. And And the idea here is that I believe is that the love languages is a good milk principle. It's like
Mm.
a good entry level into having empathy and gaining more understanding, a more profound understanding of your partner. But it is not meat. Like this is not everything. And a lot of people read that book because I think the part of the reason it is so approachable is
It's an easy
it
concept.
it's an easy to grasp concept. It's like, oh, there's these five things, and we don't share all five. And I might care about one more than the other, and vice versa. And it's an introduction to this kind of this world of we are complex beings, we have different needs and desires. And I think that's really beautiful. But I think it's a starting point, and I think a lot of people read that book and then they
Got it.
stop and they're like,
Yes.
it's all about love languages. If we can just
Yeah.
speak each other's love language, we're gonna be okay. And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, no,
Yes. And
that's
I
not
think
it.
you nailed it when you said complex, because I think people love putting things into categories and simplifying things in that way.
Yeah,
But the reality is, as humans, we are so much more complex.
yeah,
When you're in a relationship with another human, you've got to grow and learn more than just their love language.
yep, yep. So, yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking. So if you're a person who is all about the love languages, awesome. My invitation to you, like read the book. Absolutely. If you haven't read the book, read the book. If you have read the book, revisit it, but revisit it with the context of how does this inform how I show up for my partner?
Hmm.
How does this inform how I can be a better partner, how I can elevate my game, and not in what ways is this demonstrating to me how I am deprived or how my partner is weak or how they're deficient and how they're not showing up the way that I need them to?
Good.
How does this show to me the ways that they're withholding or they're not good enough and letting it be a source of resentment? So it's a difficult thing to do when there is an imbalance of thoughtfulness or an imbalance of intentionality in your relationship, and you're the one investing, maybe over functioning a little bit and putting in more effort and energy and thoughtfulness into the relationship, it can be really difficult to be like, oh, like I'm not getting anything back.
I think what a lot of people use the five love languages, so it's a simple concept to understand and it's a good like jumping off point.
Yeah.
But I think what you're like referring to is people can use it as a scorecard. And
Yeah.
keeping score is never going to get you more of what you want in your relationship.
Nope.
And so while it's easy to like an easy thing to understand of like this is how I can do awesome things for my partner, even my kids. They have five love languages for kids, but it's also a very easy way to fall into scorekeeping.
Yeah. So if that sounds like you and you're kind of a scorekeeper, a good episode to go back and listen to is a recent episode that we did about what did we title it? But it was about the what Shamu taught me about life, love, and marriage. And think about what behaviors that you're incentivizing instead
Yes.
of keeping score of who does what.
Yes. I
What was the
cannot
name of that
remember.
episode? Do you remember?
I cannot remember the name of the episode, but I know that it's number 309. No,
309, where we
no.
talked about acknowledging even the slightest progress.
Yes. It hasn't come out yet, right? I think it's episode
Well, in the
309.
moment that we're recording this, it hasn't come out, but by the time they
Yeah.
listen to this,
We're
it will have
getting
come out.
very
Yes.
confused. Yes, we'll link to it in the show notes, but definitely it's about recognizing progress and incentivizing the right things with your partner. So yes, um, keeping score of, who's speaking more proficiently each other's love language is definitely going to have some negative consequences.
A lot of them. Yeah, I've seen it happen. So, five love languages, just to kind of encapsulate everything. Great principle in theory. It's a great introduction to we all experience life a little bit differently and relationships a little bit differently. It's great to learn something about your partner and help your partner learn something about you. But if you weaponize it, if you turn it into a scorecard, if you make it an expectation, or if you create this covert contract in your head that if my partner loves me, then they will treat me this way. They will give me this thing. And then anything that they do to the contrary is proof that they don't love you or they don't care about you. That can be a very toxic recipe um, for relationship failure,
Yeah.
breakdown.
So good. Yeah, so I think you proved it really well that the five love languages, while useful, can also be very dangerous. So let's make sure that we
Handle with
examine
care.
how we're using these pieces of information about each other. And there's lots of actual principles that we can talk about that can be really, really dangerous if we kind of hang our relationship health hat on it. So yeah, I think the five love languages, just maybe take inventory of what you know about your partner and how you're using that information. Is it blessing your relationship or is it causing resentment? And however you answer that question is kind of where you need to do some exploration.
Bam. Love it. So we'll see you next week.
All right, thanks for tuning in.